listening to the best of the Martha Zoller Show. To hear the full show each day, tune in to AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN or log in to accesswdun.com and click the Listen Live button from 9 to 11, Monday through Friday. Joining me right now is Chief Stephen Sund. He's the former chief of the United States Capitol Police. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in D.C. Chief Sund, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure, Martha.
So, it seems like a huge turnaround, not only from the crime standpoint, which is the most important thing in my view, because of it's how you live your day-to-day life, but it's also the language that's being used by the mayor and by others about the need to have this kind of enhanced look at policing in these big cities.
You are 100% correct. And not only was I the chief of the U.S. Capitol Police, I was with D.C. Police for a little over 25 years. I've worked with Mayor Bowser on various initiatives. So you're absolutely right. This is just smart policing. We've done this in the past. We brought in during what's called the Safe Streets Initiative, Summer Crime Initiative. We brought in ATF, DEA, FBI because of their specialties in those areas for going after serious crimes. They can get forensics back a lot quicker. And we'd also bring in National Guard to help support missions like lighting missions to light communities so the kids can come out and play. So this has been done before. Now, because it's being pushed from the White House and it's being the president's invoking Clause 740 of the Home Rule Act, it's getting all this political rhetoric, which ultimately, in the end, isn't doing the people being most victimized by crime any good.
Yeah, and so what's it like on the streets of D.C. right now?
Well, I can tell you, I was down there last night from about 7 p.m. till probably even close to 10 p.m. It's definitely a quieter city. There's a lot of people out. Restaurants were doing pretty good. I was in a restaurant for a little while last night. But I talked to D.C. police who are at a 50-year staffing low. Morale is low. They haven't been able to do their job. They got city councils passed legislation that ties their hands. They're now actually being able to go out and being encouraged to do their job, and they can show you what they can do. So they're encouraged. I've talked to people in the community who like seeing the police out there. I'll tell you, 95% of the victims of crime in Washington, D.C. are the black community, and they're the ones that you see out there appreciative of it. They're not the ones out there protesting it up in Northwest. They're the ones appreciative of the resources you're seeing in Southeast, Lincoln Heights, Congress Heights, where they're asking to see more. So you're seeing an effective response, and you're seeing the courts also being supportive, which sometimes in the past haven't.
I saw an interview with Governor JB Pritzker of Illinois where he's taken some sort of walk with a reporter, and he says, the reporter asked him, you had 55 shootings this weekend and 7 people killed. Why aren't you asking for help? And he says, big cities are going to have crime. To me, that is, and look, I'm not anti-rich at all. I'm glad J.B. Pritzker comes from a rich family. But that sounds like a comment from a rich guy who's never lived anywhere but behind a gated house in a gated community and doesn't know what it's like when you're the regular person. I remember it in 2020, there was this video during one of the riots in Minneapolis of a black woman saying to these 2 white girls that were vandalizing a Starbucks, and she's asking them, what are they doing? And they're going, I'm trying to help you. She goes, no, you're not helping me because you're going to leave and go back where you are, and and they're never going to rebuild here. So I think it's a lot of people that don't deal with this kind of crime every day. And they swoop in and they go, oh, you just don't understand, honey. You may live here, but you don't understand.
But you're absolutely right. And it's sad because, again, his rhetoric only further victimizes those people most affected by crime. I can tell you he has never walked a footbeat in the evening through some of these high crime areas. He's never gone out there on patrol with the police officers to see what they have to deal with. And see how this crime is really affecting people. He's using political sound bites to get votes, which is irresponsible and reckless. He was out there saying, when Trump comes in, he's going to come in to terrorize communities and break up community picnics. He's not going after the criminals. He's absolutely going after the criminals. He's not talking anything about rhetoric. He's not making this political. He's making it specifically about crime. in crime stats. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's a shame when politicians, again, in their, high ivory towers, don't get exposed to this. Again, just can further victimize the crime victims that are out there already.
We're talking to former chief of the United States Capitol Police, Stephen Sund. And, down here in Atlanta, I'm sure you followed the story about the police training facility and all the problems we had getting that open. But it's now open. And, I thought after 2020, what we wanted was better trained police, which is what this center gives. And Mayor Dickens has been very kind to me because I have advocated for this center since the beginning. The 3 different city councils voted on it. It is going to give the opportunity for first responders of all kinds to get the kind of training they need. And so that's good. What is it going to take in your view? Because every police department I talk to or sheriff's department across the country has some level of morale problems. Now, in places like where I live in Gainesville, Georgia, we're very supportive of police. It's not as bad. But there are places like D.C. and New York and Chicago and L.A. where police feel dejected. What is it going to take to make this better?
It's going to take a concerted effort. We got to stop playing these politics with people's safety. You got to come together. Both sides of the aisle need to support police. Where you see really, really low morale, you're seeing it from the political top being pushed down onto the council, or the council pushing it down onto the mayor, the city, the chief, and it goes down from there. Yeah, you'll have some bad internal leaders in police departments that only exacerbate the low morale. But when you're in these areas where you don't even get support from your city leadership, that's horrible. We've got to come together, and it makes no sense from a police officer. How can you at any time politicize people's safety? I'll tell you, people in the community want safety in their community, safety in their kids' school, and good economic development. They want an economic future. If you can't give them those, they have no sense of security, no sense of future. So I think somehow we got to come together, both sides of the aisle, and again support the men and women of law enforcement. Train them appropriately, outfit them effectively, and let them do their JOBs.
So what's your advice to people right now about what we can do? I mean, obviously, my thing is we gotta vote. We got to parent our children, and we've got to stop being so tribal about everything. Look, I'm a strong conservative Republican. I love what the president is doing right now. But I also we need to get around the table with people, because I think it's the leadership that's the problem in the Democratic Party, that the problem is not the people. When you talk to the people, they want the same things. You may disagree with me about this, Stephen, but Donald Trump is not that conservative. What he is a pragmatist, common sense leader. Okay. He's conservative on the things I like him to be conservative on. You know what I mean? But he will meet people. I know that if a JB Pritzker or the mayor of Chicago called up and said, "Hey, President Trump, we would like to work with you," he would find a way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're seeing that with Mayor Bowser. Mayor Bowser has now come out and said, "Hey, I want to support this initiative beyond the September 25th. I think it is the expiration date. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, and has come up with some ideas for it." You're absolutely right. He will sit down and talk to anybody. I think that's just how he is. He's extremely detail oriented. That's one of the reasons he's about beautification, reducing crime. But you're absolutely right. I think he would be willing to talk to anybody, and I would applaud any city leader that would reach out and say, "You know what, enough is enough. My people have been victimized too much. I want some help. I want to coordinate these federal resources to try and help my people." They're not coming in to terrorize them. They're trying to come in to help your community. And I'd applaud. And I can tell you, media across the spectrum would applaud leaders like that. So I agree with you. I'd like to see more of that, and I know he would absolutely speak with them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on today and talking about this. And I'm hopeful about the future. Thank you.
Always. Thank you, Martha.
Putting the talk in news talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
Bill Crane's joining me right now, and we love talking about Georgia politics. But, Bill, I've been talking about this a lot. We got to stop the tribalism. We've got to stop the things that we do that separate us. There's a lot more things. You got a governor of Illinois that says yesterday that, 55 people were shot and 7 people were killed. But, we have crime in cities all the time. And then tries to turn and say Trump's the problem. When, I just don't understand why everybody's not opposed to having higher crime in cities. There are things that we should agree on, that the polling says that we agree on these things, but the leadership is not reflecting it. Is that because of money, or what do you think?
Well, on the Democratic side of the aisle and a lot of their core constituencies, there is a belief that getting tough on crime is code for arresting more people of color and more people of low income means and circumstance. No, getting tough on crime means cracking down on offenders and arresting people who break the law, particularly property crimes and crimes of personal violence. Are they disproportionately minority? Probably. Does the data show over the course of the last 40 to 50 years that more people of color are arrested than they are a percentage of the population? Yes, but that's not the same thing. Now, I've never been a minority, so I cannot speak to the frustrations of being pulled over by a police officer for driving while black, or some of the things that are real and do happen. But that's not crime, and those, generally speaking, don't, other than people being frustrated or embarrassed, that doesn't result in an arrest. That doesn't result in unlawful use of force by police officers. But these splinters, I call them, that do exist, a lot of our leadership on both sides of the aisles choose, instead of pulling that splinter out and letting it heal, to hammer it in as if there's some benefit to having us divided, because that means you'll be a little more loyal to me or more loyal to the other candidate. And I, like you, am a very big believer and live that an attitude of gratitude gets you a long way, and treating people with civility and respect does a whole lot for communication. And unfortunately, not all of our leaders agree with that. I
mean, and granted, videos you see are anecdotal, okay? But what I'm seeing is a whole lot of people of color that you wouldn't necessarily expect, and they're not necessarily being Trump supporters. What they're saying is, my city is not safe. My kids can't walk. Siege.
There are areas of Atlanta that
yes,
the worst, most violent crime are in areas where people are most economically challenged, highest concentration of homeless populations, and they are in need. I mean, children getting shot, not robbed, but in errant gunfire, and those areas need assistance. Now, we are coming up on the 30-day cutoff for the President's authority of home rule in D.C. I don't know if he's planning outreach to Congress to extend that. I do think there are additional options that don't involve activating National Guard.
Well, I have a little news on that, Bill, because I had the former head of the Capitol Police on a little earlier in the program, and there was a meeting between Mayor Bowser and the police union and some folks from the White House this morning, and she's asked them to stay on. So I think, and I don't know if it means every single resource they're using up until now, but she is cooperating, and she's asked them to stay on, and I think that's good.
Well, and I think there is, again, a distinction between collaboration and cooperation between the Capitol Police Force, which has been there for decades, and activating National Guard and FBI agents to do local city street policing. But as we talked about last week, there is a shortfall and a shortage of police officers in most urban areas, which is contributing to
and that's exactly
their lower salaries and desire not to stay in the profession, people retiring, people not joining. It used to be a very solid career path for former military. You're seeing less of that.
Look, right here in Hall County, on a regular basis, we cooperate with the FBI, with ICE, with other federal agencies because they have certain expertise that we don't have. This idea that asking the feds for help is some unusual thing for cities and counties to do is just, I bet you in DeKalb County where you live, they do interaction through DeKalb Police with certain parts of federal government because they have resources that local police departments don't have.
They do and they don't. There's issues. I live in DeKalb County, and there are 13 municipalities here, and some of them collaborate and work well with their police departments in DeKalb County as well as state agencies and federal, and some do not. But that path always exists. And again, it's back to leadership. If you have a chief or a sheriff or a DA that wants to combine resources and do things like multi-jurisdictional drug task forces, which have been very successful in Georgia, in which Chris Carr has expanded as Attorney General, those work. I'm just suggesting that I don't think the long-term solution is having governors of one state send National Guard troops to another state when those National Guard troops are part-time people leaving behind a family and a job to go do that work. I don't think that's a long-term solution. I think that you push them in, show the force, you tamp crime down, and then you pull them back out. And then, again, the local, state, and federal agencies already on the ground can and do collaborate better when they have the right leadership and direction.
No, I don't disagree with you, but I think it's got to be more than 30 days in most cases because, you know how hard it is to change habits.
We're stuck with the law.
Yeah,
we're stuck with
absolutely.
I'm not disagreeing. We're stuck with the structure. And, again, the home rule thing in D.C. is not young. It's an old piece of legislation, and so is the Posse Comitatus Act. So if you want to change that policy and essentially have a national police strike force, which is kind of what I think Donald Trump would like to see for crime suppression, you've got to create that with legislation. You can't do all that.
No, I think that could happen. I think that one of the other things you got to do, and you even saw Gavin Newsom acknowledge that Trump is right because he had a press conference the end of last week talking about enhanced measures. I mean, he was twisting himself all up to not make it
like
sound
a pretzel, but at least he can read a poll.
Yeah, he can read a poll that people want to be safe. I mean, that's ridiculous. I'll tell you a funny story. We had these couple of exchange students over the years, and, they all want to do road trips, okay, and because they've seen American movies, right? And so this young girl from Denmark, 3 of her friends came over at the end of her stay here, and they drove cross country and they went to Los Angeles and they had to turn in their car and then they were going on a bus because, they don't think anything about riding buses. And it was 2 miles to get to the bus station. So they're Europeans. They walk. It's 2 miles.
Yeah.
So the area they were walking through was like Watts. Okay. And so they're walking along with their little suitcases at 1:00 in the morning after they've turned in their rental car, and an ambulance goes by, passes them, stops, backs up, opens the door and goes, because these are like 3 young girls carrying suitcases. And he's like, these girls do not fit here, right? And he goes, what are y'all doing? And they tell him, and they said, get in. And they drove them to where they were going, and they said, don't ever do that again, or else I'll be picking you up to take you to the hospital. And it was so, because, they're Europeans. They think nothing about walking 2 miles. I mean, if you're going to walk 2 miles to a bus station, that's normal. So anyway, I thought that was funny, and it's a story we use in our Rotary Club when we're acclimating the new students that come, because, there are places you can't go.
Things are a little different here. Yeah.
Little different. It's a little different here. Anyway, thank you so much. I want one more question, though. Okay, so Brian Kemp endorsed Derek Dooley, not a big surprise. We don't know who Trump's going to endorse. I know Dooley's people are meeting with the White House people. I've heard he's not going to do anything for a while because he doesn't need to. But I think it's interesting because is this going to be Trump versus Kemp again, or do you think Trump could get behind Derek Dooley?
I think you're right that in the near term he's going to sit on the fence, but I think in the end, the bigger crowd and the need to hang on to Congress and to keep the base happy, he's more likely to go with one of the 2 MAGA established candidates. And of those 2, I think Mike Collins has the better shot. And if he goes there, then, you have both in the Senate and the governor's race, the president and the governor choosing different sides. Now, they could be, it happens, civil and pleasant about that and just root for their respective candidates. But with those 2, I'm not sure that's the way it plays out.
Absolutely. Bill Crane, thanks for being with me today.
Take care.
It's local radio, and that's why you're listening. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
We're joined by JB Simko from the Philip Morris Company on a project they're doing called A Smoke-Free Future. And, of course, when you hear Philip Morris, you think about cigarettes, I think, if you're a person of a certain age. So I wanted to get them on to talk about what they're doing. JB, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Martha. It's great to be with you.
So, first of all, give people just kind of a little update on the Philip Morris Company, because I think it does much different things today than it has done in its history.
That's right. And in fact, the Philip Morris that you typically think of is not us. And so that's why it's important to start there. We are Philip Morris we're Philip Morris International U.S. and we are a U.S. company, but we actually haven't done business in the U.S. until 2022 when we acquired a company called Swedish Match that makes a nicotine pouch called Zyn. So all of our business has been international until that time, and we're focused on replacing cigarettes with smoke-free products like this nicotine pouch, Zyn. Internationally, we also have a heated tobacco product called IQOS that is very successful. Both of these products have been authorized by the FDA, and we don't sell cigarettes in the U.S. So actually, the Philip Morris that people typically think of is now one of our top competitors.
So how did that happen? How do you have the same name, basically?
Well, we were a family of companies, and in 2008, there was a spin-off or a split. And so Philip Morris Altria kept all the trademarks and stayed in the U.S. We had the trademarks and went international. The difference is that about 10 years ago, we decided to phase out our cigarette business. So internationally now, our smoke-free products make up over 40% of our total revenues. By 2030, our smoke-free products will make up nearly 2/3 of our revenue. So the change is happening. We are phasing out cigarettes. We don't sell them in the U.S., and that's, obviously why we're competitors now, because, we're trying to move people down the risk continuum to products that the FDA has reviewed the science on and authorized. And we think these are important products for adult smokers. There are still over 28 million smokers in the U.S., over 1 million in Georgia, and the vast majority of those people continue to smoke year on year. And so while quitting altogether is always the best choice, these types of products present less risk of harm and are a better choice for adult smokers. But it's critically important that we keep them away from people who are under the age of 21.
So we're talking to JB Simko, U.S. Chief Civil Society and Underage Prevention Officer for PMI US. And it was funny, my husband and I were in Europe this summer. We were in England for 2 weeks, and they are the cigarettes are very expensive there. Like, I think they've got so many taxes on them. It's like 20 pounds for a pack of cigarettes, which is crazy, 15 to 20 pounds. So what you see is everybody on the street doing either vaping or some other form of smokeless tobacco. I mean, it's everywhere, but it's not cigarettes. That's what I'm seeing.
Right. Well, and in fact, the UK government has recognized what we call harm reduction as a policy. So they are actively trying to move people away from cigarettes. They're increasing taxes on cigarettes and encouraging them to use products that don't burn tobacco. It's really the combustion that causes the problem, the smoke and the chemicals in the smoke that are the problem. And so these products that don't contain tobacco or don't burn the tobacco and just heat it, produce far fewer chemicals and at much, much lower levels, and that's the benefit. So that's what you see in the UK. The US has a similar system. It's moving slower, and so we're hopeful that this progress will speed up and the FDA will authorize more of these products. Our product Zyn is the only authorized nicotine pouch. Our product IQOS is the only authorized heated tobacco product. So you need a workable process. You need more of these products to be available because you want verified products that people have confidence in and are comfortable switching to when they switch away from cigarettes.
How big, how big of an issue is it that obviously the cigarette industry took a huge hit in America in the 70s, 80s, and 90s because they got revealed as kind of leading people down a primrose path about cigarettes and things like that. And obviously you have to deal with that even today, or is pretty much the timeline, I mean, I'm 66, so I remember these times, is the timeline that people don't remember this?
Well, it is still very present, and certainly there's significant skepticism of the industry, and I think that's part of the challenge.
I think anything you're going to put into your body, you should be skeptical about. And that's why I think the UK calls it harm reduction, right? because they're acknowledging that you have to know what you're putting in your body, right?
Yes. And in fact, in the U.S., it's the same through the FDA process. So as I said, we actually have to submit. We have spent over $9 billion just on the science behind these products. And then we present all of that science to the FDA. They review the science. They review all other literature. They have public hearings. And then they make a decision either to authorize or not authorize. And so that process is intended to give some confidence, because if I just come to you and say, hey, these are great products, there's necessarily skepticism. And so it's important that this process works, that people have confidence in the FDA as a regulator, and that adult smokers know about these products, because they deserve to have information, they deserve to have access so that they can move away from smoking. It is still the number one preventable cause of death and disease in the U.S., and nearly 3 out of $4 at retail today still are spent on cigarettes. So there really is a need for these, for adults to be able to have access to better products. At the same time, we don't want underage users, so we have to have a comprehensive approach.
So JB Simko is with the Philip Morris International, and he's previously served as the Vice President of Civil Society, Regulatory, and Public Policy. He also is a lawyer, and practiced law for a period of time, graduated magna cum laude from the University of Minnesota Law School, and went to the University of Iowa. So you're just a Midwest guy.
I'm a Midwest guy. I'm a diehard Hawkeye. But we do a lot of work in the Southeast, in particular, in Georgia. We've got a factory in North Carolina, a factory in Kentucky. So I do spend quite a bit of time in the Southeast, but I'm definitely a Midwest guy.
Well, JB Simko, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Martha.
To hear the full versions of last week's Martha Zoller shows, go to the podcast page at accesswdun.com, and you can follow me on social media at Martha Zoller.